Astute Quotations, Part 23. It is what we choose not to observe in our life that controls our life. Lynn V. Andrews, New Age typewriter. Do not protect yourself with a fence, but rather with your friends. Czech proverb. The higher we are placed, the more humbly we should walk. Cicero. What cannot be talked about cannot be put to rest. Psychologist Bruno Bettelheim, though his professional credentials have been challenged. He prays best who does not know that he is praying. Saint Anthony of Padua. What you are will show in what you do. Thomas Edison. If you don't think you can win, you'll make cowardly decisions at crucial moments. Magnus Carlsen, chess grandmaster at the age of 13. I'm trying to beat the guy sitting across from me and trying to choose the moves that are most unpleasant for him and his style. Magnus Carlsen. It is rightly said that the most difficult thing in chess is winning a one position. Vladimir Kramnik, chess grandmaster. An impatient person plays differently than a patient one. Vladimir Kramnik. A point of view can be a dangerous luxury when substituted for insight and understanding. Marshall McLuhan, media theorist. It is the weak and confused who worship the pseudo-simplicities of brutal directness. Marshall McLuhan. If you have doubt, there's no show. Comedian Don Rickles. One of the tremendous evils of the world is the monstrous accumulation of wealth in a few hands. William Ellery Channing, American minister, 1780 to 1842. Mistake, error, is the discipline through which we advance. William Ellery Channing. It's rather unusual, I should say, to see mistakes framed as a discipline, but I do like that. Dark error is the other hidden side of truth. Victor Hugo. Keep the other person's well-being in mind when you feel an attack of soul-purging truth coming on. TV actress Betty White. To forget one's purpose is the commonest form of stupidity. Nietzsche. Fate is not an eagle. It creeps like a rat. Elizabeth Bowen, Irish novelist. Intimacies between women often go backwards, beginning in revelations and ending in small talk. Elizabeth Bowen. Introspection is always retrospection. Jean-Paul Sartre. People say you are flirting with death, but really you are flirting with life. Lauren Hutton, fashion model. Whatever tension is on the set can end up on your face. Lauren Hutton. Great men rejoice in adversity just as brave soldiers triumph in war. Seneca, 1st century A.D. Anger, even when concealed, is betrayed by the countenance. Seneca. A pleasing countenance is a silent commendation. Cyrus, 1st century BC. Unless you bear with the faults of a friend, you betray your own. Cirrus. It isn't normal to know what we want. It is a rare and difficult psychological achievement. Abraham Maslow. Assume a virtue even if you have it not, for use almost can change the stamp of nature. From Hamlet. Fake it till you make it. Heard in the self-improvement seminar. The worst men often give the best advice. Francis Bacon. The advice of the aged will not mislead you. Spanish proverb. The facts that make up the world need the non-factual as a vantage point from which to be perceived. Austrian poet Ingeborg Bachmann, an outstanding insight that defies normal logic. A wise man may look ridiculous in the company of fools. Thomas Fuller, 1608 to 1661. The sophist is one who makes money from an apparent but unreal wisdom. The greatest element of style is to have a command of metaphor. Aristotle. Where your talents and the needs of the world cross, there lies your calling. Aristotle. There are only two people who can tell you the truth about yourself: an enemy who has lost his temper and a friend who loves you dearly. Antisthenes, 4th century BC. We are continually faced with great opportunities which are brilliantly disguised as unsolvable problems. Margaret Mead. I don't want to be a hero. All I want is the money. From Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, and sampled by Colorbox in 1986. The woman who does not choose to love should cut the matter short at once by holding out no hopes to her suitor. Marguerite de Valois, French princess, 1553 to 1615. The greatest griefs are those we cause ourselves. Sophocles. The people in power have created an obesity epidemic. Dr. Robert Atkins, developer of the Atkins diet. Intelligence and education that hasn't been tempered by human affection isn't worth a damn. Daniel Keyes, author of Flowers for Algernon. Creativity requires the courage to let go of certainties. Erich Fromm. Question: just what is it that you want to do? Answer: we want to be free. We want to be free to do what we want to do. And we want to get loaded. From the 1966 movie The Wild Angels, and covered by Primal Scream in their 1990 song Loaded, one of the 100 greatest singles of the pop rock era, and basically banned from American radio to make room for numbnuts like Bon Jovi, Billy Joel, and Van Halen. I firmly believe that a great many prayers are not answered because we are not willing to forgive someone. Evangelist Dwight Moody, 1837 to 1899. I get a kick out of watching a team defense me. A player moves 2 steps in one direction and I hit it 2 steps the other way. Rod Carew, Baseball Hall of Famer. The secret of success in life is known only by those who have not succeeded. John Churton Collins, literary critic, 1848 to 1908. To accept a favor from a friend is to confer one. John Churton Collins. What I am is good enough if I will only be it openly. Psychologist Carl Rogers. What is most personal is most universal. Carl Rogers. The clue is not to ask in a miserly way. The key is to ask in a grand manner. Anne Wigmore, Lithuanian-born proponent of healthy living. Human language prevents us from sticking to the matter at hand. Lewis Thomas, physician, author, educator. We cannot stop where we are, stuck with today's level of understanding, nor can we go back. Lewis Thomas. You're fired. Donald Trump. At boarding schools of every description, the relaxation of the junior boys is mischief. Of the senior, vice. Mary Wollstonecraft, 1759 to 1797. No man chooses evil because it's evil. He only mistakes it for happiness. Mary Wollstonecraft. When we feel deeply, we reason profoundly. Mary Wollstonecraft. A slavish bondage to parents cramps every faculty of the mind. Mary Wollstonecraft. If you put good apples into a bad situation, you'll get bad apples. Psychologist Philip Zimbardo. Those who have most at stake in the old culture try to summon people back to the old ideas. Marilyn Ferguson, author of The Aquarian Conspiracy. Love is a context, not a behavior. Marilyn Ferguson. We know who she lifted that one from. To cement a new friendship, especially between foreigners or persons of a different social world, a spark with which both were secretly charged must fly from person to person and cut across the accidents of place and time. Philosopher George Santayana. Physical equilibrium engenders mental equanimity. Heard on the street, if you catch my drift. Creative minds have always been known to survive any kind of training. Anna Freud. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strengths. Sigmund Freud, her father. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. Sigmund Freud. God uses lust to impel men to marry, ambition to seek public office, avarice to earn money, and fear to learn faith. God led me like an old blind goat. Martin Luther. We are more heavily invested in the theories of failure than we are in the theories of success. Psychologist Albert Bandura. One cannot afford to be a realist. Albert Bandura. The work praises the man. Irish proverb. Many times it brings danger to give the best advice to kings. Robert Herrick, 1591 to 1674. No man ever understands quite his own artful dodges to escape from the grim shadow of self-knowledge. Joseph Conrad, author of Heart of Darkness. When anyone has offended me, I try to raise my soul so high that the offense cannot reach it. René Descartes. True genius does not fulfill expectations. It shatters them. Arlene Croce, founder of Ballet Review magazine. The best prayers have often more groans than words. John Bunyan, author of The Pilgrim's Progress. The man with enough insight to admit his limitations comes nearest to perfection. Goethe. I think knowing what you cannot do is more important than knowing what you can. Actress Lucille Ball. I seldom think about my limitations. Helen Keller. The basic experience of everyone is the experience of human limitation. Novelist Flannery O'Connor. Conviction without experience makes for harshness. Flannery O'Connor. Every upset is a setup. Werner Erhard. It takes real humility to be bold without being arrogant. Werner Erhard. We have to give up saying in frustration, "All right, I'll do it myself." Werner Erhard. In many organizations, leaders are selected for overconfidence. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman. The mind is a machine for jumping to conclusions. Daniel Kahneman. Niceness is the psychological armor of the people pleaser. Psychologist Harriet Breaker. Awakening begins when a man realizes he is going nowhere and doesn't know where to go. Gurdjieff. People who take risks are the people you will lose against. Business executive John Scully. What pisses me off is when I've got 7 or 8 record company fat pig men telling me what to wear. Sinead O'Connor. God needs to be rescued from religious music. Sinead O'Connor. To know how to hide one's ability takes great skill. La Rochefoucauld. The tools to him who can handle them. Thomas Carlyle, 1795 to 1881. When one is pretending, the entire body revolts. Anais Nin. Maturity is the ever-expanding ability to absorb the communications of others. Heard at the self-improvement seminar. Those people who are uncomfortable in themselves are disagreeable to others. William Hazlitt, 1778 to 1830. The busier we are, the more leisure we have. William Hazlitt. Doctors and lawyers must go to school for years and years, often with little sleep and with great sacrifice to their first wives. Author Roy Blount, Jr. A fop sometimes gives important advice. Boileau, 1636 to 1711. Note that fop is a predecessor to the term hipster, including all of its negative connotations. Hipsters are very annoying. Whatever we conceive well, we express clearly. Boileau. Authority is 20% given and 80% taken. Sports executive Pete Uberoth. The fundamental problem most patients have is an inability to love themselves, having been unloved by others during some crucial part of their lives. Dr. Bernie Siegel. We waste a lot of time running after people we could have caught by just standing still. Journalist Mignon McLaughlin. Boy, that was a real fireball. Astronaut John Glenn on his dangerous re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. Some say God is living there in space. I looked around very attentively, but I did not see anyone there. Hermann Titov, the second human to orbit the Earth. Wit is often its own worst enemy. Maria Edgeworth, Irish novelist, 1768 to 1849. No man ever distinguished himself who could not bear to be laughed at. Maria Edgeworth. Angels whisper fast. Neil Donald Walsh, New Age writer. You must have discipline to have fun. Julia Child, the French chef. I care not who controls a nation's political affairs, so long as I control her currency. Meyer Amschel Rothschild. Asshole. The negative screams at you, but the positive only whispers. Psychologist Barbara Fredrickson. The vast majority of people in any organization, even quite high up, have no idea who the real masters are. David Icke, independent journalist. Accuracy of language is one of the bulwarks of truth. Anna Brownell Jameson, 1794 to 1860. No change of circumstance can repair a defect of character. Emerson. Temptations come, as a general rule, when they are sought. Scottish novelist Margaret Oliphant, 1828 to 1897. The profits to be had from smart people making complicated bets overwhelmed anything that could be had from servicing customers or allocating capital to productive enterprise. Financial journalist Michael Lewis talking about life on Wall Street. The men on the trading floor may not have been to school, but they do have PhDs in men's ignorance. Michael Lewis. The incentive for the outsider is to attack the system right up to the moment he is co-opted by it. Michael Lewis. The closer you are to the market, the harder it is to perceive its folly. Michael Lewis. Superior people never make long visits. Poet Marianne Moore. Do battleships have ignition keys? Doc Love. Whenever there is a simple error that most laymen fall for, there is always a slightly more sophisticated version of the same problem that the experts fall for. Amos Tversky, cognitive psychologist. That wasn't so hard, was it? Super Mario. Content to follow when we lead the way. From the Iliad. The difference between good programmers and great programmers is verbal ability. Marissa Mayer, head of Yahoo. You have to ruthlessly prioritize. Marissa Mayer, or Meyer. I'd like to get myself in over my head. Marissa Mayer, or Meyer. How many people become abstract in order to appear profound? Most abstract terms are shadows that conceal a void. Joseph Joubert, French essayist. We'll leave the light on for you. Tom Baudette's standard pitch for Motel 6, a place I'd never like to stay. Mediocre people may appear big to themselves if they are surrounded by small circumstances. Hans Adolf Krebs, biochemist. Rest and you rust. Heard at the physical therapist's office. I am not accustomed to saying anything with certainty after only one or two observations. Physician Andreas Vesalius, 1514 to 1564. Father Mackenzie, wiping the dirt from his hands as he walks from the grave. No one was saved. The Beatles, from Eleanor Rigby. Break those chains that bind you. Typically dim-witted lyrics from those regressive morons of a rock band known as Journey. It is sometimes easier to circumvent prevailing difficulties rather than to attack them directly. Jacobus van 't Hoff, Dutch chemist. Lack of patience is probably the most common reason for losing a game or drawing games that should have been won. Chess Grandmaster Bent Larson. I had never passed a single school exam and clearly never would. Mary Leakey, renowned paleoanthropologist. The seeds of great discoveries are constantly floating around us, but they only take root in minds well prepared to receive them. Geophysicist Joseph Henry, 1797 to 1878. How far should a girl go on a first date? Tucson, Miss Piggy. An insolent reply from a polite person is a bad sign. Hippocrates. Few males achieve any real freedom in their sexual relations, even with their wives. Few males realize how badly inhibited they are on these matters. Alfred Kinsey, 1948. The female of the species is more deadly than the male. Rudyard Kipling. Much can be inferred from a man from his mistress. Georg Christoph Lichtenberg, German philosopher, 1742 to 1799. The most dangerous untruths are truths slightly distorted. Georg Christoph Lichtenberg. With most people, disbelief in a thing is founded on a blind belief in some other thing. Lichtenberg. The cultural fixation on female thinness is not an obsession about female beauty, but one about female obedience. Journalist Naomi Wolf, who does seem to exhibit one or two lingering issues in the carbohydrate department. What editors are obliged to say men want from women is actually what their advertisers want from women. Naomi Wolf. If you're really effective at what you do, 95% of the things said about you will be negative. Scott Boras, sports agent. And this completes Astute Quotations.